Bitcoin is pumping right now. And just a little while back, we explained this analysis where as the S&P trends higher, and especially once it breaks its all-time high, it could be time for Bitcoin again. And that as the Ethereum ETF decisions get closer, with again, May 23rd being our main date that we're watching, things could get really interesting. I will have to add though that if we're talking about where the Bitcoin price is going, even though we're pumping right now, and we've actually gone from roughly 60,000 to what? 63.5 in just a span of a few hours. Today we're up, let's see here, the lowest point today was 60.7 thousand. The highest point today being 63.3 thousand. So a pretty significant pump in just a span of a few hours. I will have to add that in the grand scheme of things, this price move really is not that impressive, mostly because of what we are expecting to happen next. And if you've got no idea what I'm talking about, we talked about it really recently. Funding rates, and funding rates. But I think today you can throw that completely out of the window and we have to talk about liquidations. Now, not about somebody getting popped. Well, I guess it's a matter of perspective. But the one thing we are watching is for this major threshold here at $67.3 thousand. As you can see, this is one of the most crazy liquidation levels we've seen in an extremely long time. $3 billion. Now, if we go and zoom out all the way towards a 3-month perspective, yes, I think it gets even crazier, but I'd say that the number is so spread out that it makes you realize where the majority of the pressure lies. Again, we on the bottom side have got ourselves the $50,000 level. On the upside, we have ourselves the $67,000 with $5 billion worth of leverage. But more importantly over there, we've got ourselves the $74,000, which again, with some simple math means the majority of the pressure is still upwards. And as we all know, price follows liquidity. And since there's a level here a lot closer with some significant liquidity, $5 billion at 67,000, you can see the massive pump we saw right here. One thing people forget to realize here is that you can have some of these massive pumps because there are no mass liquidation events in the middle. So the price can basically go for free reign anywhere within this range without it looking weird, without anything really happening in terms of consequences. If the price were to drop right now all the way back down to 60, most people really wouldn't even notice. It's only once you go towards the $67,000 mark, or again below, perhaps I'm going to say this $56,000 mark, where the pressure is also pretty significant, that you notice some really juicy numbers. I should add though that that's a little bit of an exaggeration. Specifically, the 60K mark has now become this barrier because we recently got below, and right now so many people are banking that this was the last time that Bitcoin goes below 60,000. And again, our most recent long positions were also open between 59 and I'm gonna say, $60,000 and $56,000, with the idea, gonna be honest with you, to only buy at between 60 and 59. But since the price went down so much more, we also just bought our way down a little bit with a beautiful entry at 56 point something thousand. But again, even if you did not do that, if you were not buying your way down, not really too much of a worry, because again, the 59K or whatever, somewhere in that range level was completely fine if we looked at the next few days where the price went to 56, or if we look back at it right now where we are at 63. And again, there comes my most important point. Your entry is one thing, but the most important thing that people forget to realize is that it's all about managing your capital. It's all about managing the fear as long as you know what you're doing. In this case here, I've been hammering it in so many times. Just buy between 60 and 59K. That's it. And still people think, should I do that? Is that a smart? In my opinion, there's no way I'm not going to do that. From any risk reward perspective, it's just worth it, and that's why I keep popping up with the same strategy. Right now, as it stands though, I think for a worst case scenario ever, like ever for crypto, it'd be 50,000, where it just, that's again my opinion, right? We're gonna wreck some people, get really crazy for a little second, and then just recover like nothing ever happened, and then 50K will never be seen again. I personally think $40,000 per Bitcoin might never be seen again unless a massive black swan event were to happen. But then I'll extend it by saying $30,000, I think, regardless of what happens, I don't think we'll see it ever again. Now, if we're talking about altcoins, there's only one altcoin that I'm watching right now, and that is Ethereum. Because even though the price action is very, very similar to that of Bitcoin, the risk reward is slightly better right now, purely based on the fact that the entire market will just move down potentially a little bit as the Ethereum ETFs get denied. But with the Bitcoin ETFs in the run-up of the ETF decision, Bitcoin did really, really well. There is a chance that a similar result could be brought up for Ethereum. The only difference there being that Ethereum doesn't have the underlying bullish narrative of it being approved. I'd say the consensus is going to be denied. So it's hard to gain a real big edge here over the competition, as again, we don't have any more insights on the SEC's decision there. What we do have is some insights on how the S&P is moving and how Bitcoin usually reacts. I've said this before, but Bitcoin hit an all-time high, right? The highest point, let's call it, slightly before the S&P peaked. But the S&P bottomed slightly. Again, there's 14 days between the Bitcoin top and the S&P top, 12 days between the S&P bottom and the Bitcoin bottom, showcasing, first of all, a massive correlation, because being just 2 weeks apart with markets this massive, it's definitely pretty significant if you were to ask me. But more importantly, what it shows to me is this type of result can be extrapolated upon previous times. If you backtest, you'll notice it very often happens that when the S&P hits an all-time high, Bitcoin doesn't follow suit a long time after, or I should say it the opposite way around, follows suit pretty quickly after. We did a really big study before we showcased, okay? After the S&P hits its all-time high, usually 1 year later, after the S&P breaks all-time high, is when Bitcoin peaks. I'd say the S&P hit an all-time high, in January or so of this year. And again, I'll also say that once Bitcoin hits an all-time high, usually it takes a good while for altcoins to hit an all-time high. So that is also something to kind of watch out for. But for right now, as it stands, we are just watching the $67,000 level for Bitcoin. That's all we're gearing up for. That's all we're watching, but also for this slightly longer term trend to be broken towards either side. Right now, Bitcoin has just been trading sideways. You can pull this in ever so slightly if you wanted to. I don't think it matters too much here. It's just a basic trend, right? It's mostly just been a downtrend. And again, if you're wondering, oh, when exactly should I be buying? Always, like I've stated this many times before, whenever the price goes below our multi-month trading range, or when it goes above it, basically sell. Below it, we buy. Right here, it's a debatable one because the lowest the price got to is 60.186. So for my own personal preference, it's actually slightly above it. I probably would not have opened anything there, but also because we opened our positions significantly in this region. You could have sold at 65.2, 65.5, like I posted a screenshot in the Telegram, but that might have been a little bit of a difficult one to find out. Still, if you're holding your positions right now, again, the way it's currently looking on the short term is we had ourselves this bottom, and right now had ourselves a local high, had ourselves a new local bottom, and potentially now over the next few hours, we make ourselves a new high, depending on whether or not we breach this level. So I'm going to say 64,000 is the level to watch on the short term, because at that point, we are making a new uptrend.